With only one episode left of The Edge of Horizon, things are ramping up quickly, but some things have stayed the same. Tanshai Shad is still an airhead who is walking straight into fire, and I'd feel sorry for him if he wasn't so mean to Captain Pope. Despite all his stubbornness, Captain Pope cannot hold his own against Tanshai Tin. A good example is when they're talking about the citizens camping outside the ministry wishing to seek help from the king. It's like Pope wants to say what he believes in, but he also wants to spare Tin's feelings. It's so funny to watch Pope get angry about the situation and then immediately take a step back when he notices that Tin is sad.
ผมไม่หิวหรอ
ปากกระหม่อม
ผมไม่สบายใจที่เห็นประชาชนพวกนั้นใช่ไหม
ดูสิพลอยทำให้ฝ่าบาทบอกสนุกไปด้วยเลย
And then becomes so excited when Tin says he'd support anyone that can bring positive change in Siam.
จริงเหรอกระหม่อมถ้าหากเรามีหนทางที่ทำให้ประชาชนพ้นจากความทุกข์ยากฝ่าบาทจะทรงสนับสนุนไม่ขัดขวาง
ก็ต้องใช่สิผม
Honestly, this show really has me gripped with this relationship. Tanshai Tin's father, Pawasin, is still the most manipulative person ever, but he shows his true colors in this episode when he just finally admits what he meant to say this whole time. He keeps acting like he's trying to protect his son and the family name, but in the end, he's just as narrow-minded as all other homophobes. Yai, on the other hand, is a much better parent figure, one that's willing to give up honor and prestige for the happiness of the people they love. I was totally expecting her to be accepting, but it felt even better to actually see it. Tin really decides that against all odds, he wants to be with Pope, and he doesn't let down one bit. I was so sad to see him cry and beg his father on his knees, but it warmed my heart that he simply refused to give up. I do hope that he's not too upset with Pope for not being honest with him about the revolution. Unfortunately, it looks like there is bound to be some tension in the finale episode. I swear this show better have a happy ending or I'm flying to Thailand to fight somebody, even though I don't know who just yet. When I started this episode, all I could think was, wow, we really have Denial Final Boss over here. But as the episode progressed, it became clear that Lake isn't all the way in denial. He really does love Yae, so he can't bring himself to leave him. But he also hates all the weird things that Yae does. In a way, I think he was kind of hoping he could love the psycho out of Yae, which I think is such a futile attempt, but what do I know? I swear Lake is really a weird/toxic man magnet because Put also crosses the line, just like all the men who have been obsessed with him. Of course, Jin Yai comes in with fists swinging, but he really just makes things worse, and Lake is smacked with the reality that this man he's in love with will never change, no matter how much he loves him. Then the show kind of switches things up around unexpectedly. Lake starts to pull away, and Yai just lets him. When Put dies, Lake just straight up asks for another contract, which completely contradicts the one that's in place. Like, is that even allowed? I really hate when shows just kind of switch up the rules in the middle of everything and then change the meaning of everything else they've been telling us. Anyways, Yai agrees to the new contract, which means that they're now going their separate ways for real. But not before one final night together where Yai finally truly opens up. I don't even know what I want to happen now. Do I want them back together or should this really be the end? I noticed there was no preview for the next episode, and the way things ended felt like they could actually end it there. So I really thought that the show was over, but then they later released the preview. So it seems like we're getting more of Lake and Yai, but 5 years in the future, and now as an office drama. That can only go well, right? It's unfortunately time to say goodbye to Kunti and the Aseni gang for real this time. I am absolutely happy with how things ended though. Honestly, this entire show was so unserious and the best stress relief show, and the finale episode really honored that. We start with Mira and Pab continuing to bond with each other, although Mira definitely needs to be more confident. I said last week that Rome really was the better fit to take over Aseni, and it turns out everyone always knew that, so I'm patting myself on the shoulder for that. They acknowledge the bond between Mok and Kunti even more, and I couldn't be happier. And of course, they have all the over-the-top love confessions between Peach and Kunti, and even Mok and Rome. And then last but not least, they give us a glimpse of director T as he tries to direct the filming of his love story with Peach. I absolutely love the angle of using various GMMTV pairings to try playing the role, not just because I enjoyed the cameos, but because it made it so obvious that it can be only one Tirakit Kinley, and I am forever in love with the magic that Pond brought to this role. In the first few minutes of this episode, all I could think was, where the hell is Jay? But it was so heartwarming to see that Sun has a lot of people in his corner, even though he doesn't seem to realize it. There's the OG gang, Pika, John, and Sky, of course. Then there's also others like his boss from the logistics company, Sia Joe, Sia Po, and of course the main man, Jay himself. I do have to say that everyone seemed to be so calm while Sun was literally bleeding to death on the floor. And Jay's most pressing issue was that Sun didn't answer his 30 missed calls. Everyone on this show was crazy. Well, except my sweetheart Sky. I know Jay was really concerned, but the way he framed the conversation was incredibly weird, which I guess is to be expected. It seemed to work well though, because our tight-lipped baddie son finally opened up and admitted his feelings. All I could think was, who is this? It's not the son I've come to know, but I'm happy to see him evolve all the same. Son gets his revenge even though it's not exactly what he wanted and it didn't make him feel better. But that's just how it goes. I do have to say, I think the punishment for Sunny was quite harsh, but I agree that he's heartless and deserved to suffer. Anyways, I love this episode, but I do think it was plagued by the curse of the final episode where they just kind of force all of the remaining plot into one episode. But what can we do? The final episode of A Dog and a Plane was pure comedy, and that is exactly all I could have ever asked for a show like this. The bald caps and wild suit colors were not enough. They also had to include the most random incident at the wedding that put Toto back on the clock even on his wedding day. As usual, Toto is such a caring boyfriend who nursed Kanit back to health, but more impressively, he prepares a full presentation to convince Kanit's father that he and Kanit can have a good life together. That spoke to me so deeply because that's the kind of thing I can do. I think that is top grade romance. Now, there are some problems with the idea that Toto has to be rich enough to quote unquote provide for Kanit, but that's a discussion for another day. Even with that glaring issue, I was smiling pretty much throughout this episode because I have BL brain. The only exception was when I thought for a second that Weha had cut his hair and enlisted in the military just to be with Key. All I could think was, hell no, you're not throwing away your life or even just 2 years of your life for this guy that was ready to run the second things got difficult. Then I realized the haircut looked so horrible because he was wearing a bald cap, and that really changed the whole scene for me entirely. Anyway, back to the wedding. I laughed so hard at how everything was so unserious, especially them hooking up in an emergency van. I think that was so unsexy. But the little role play on the plane at the end of the show, now that's what I'm talking about. This is by far the most difficult favorites ranking I've ever had to do since I started working on this series. But here goes. I am so surprised that I am not putting The Edge of Horizon as number one this week. Not because I didn't love it, I really, really did, but the competition is getting so hot. Surprisingly, my number one this week is Don't Be Too Emotional. I don't know why, but I couldn't get over how Lake navigates his feelings throughout the episode. And something about not knowing if there was going to be a continuation to the story has made it even more heart clenching for me. Now, number two is a tie, The Edge of Horizon and Peach and Me. I know it's probably cheating to keep having ties, but I don't know how to compare my feelings about these two shows, especially since everything airing right now is so good. Well, scratch that. Everything I'm watching right now is so good. I laughed so hard and smiled till my lips almost split when watching Peach and Me. And then Tin pleading to his father to let him go be with the person he loves almost had me in tears. So I'd say both of these shows really made me feel something really deeply. Number three is Payback the Series, and it's standing strong at number three. I love that they close up all of the open threads before the show ended, and I still can't believe that Sun finally opened up to Jay. This show was a total roller coaster, but it was totally worth it. I know I'll be binging this show very soon. And finally, A Dog and a Plane is at number 4. This was a good show overall, and my heartfelt appreciation to Tainu for holding us down throughout and giving us pure comedy as usual.